So this is Donald Trump's original tweet that came out in late November. This was the original proposal. And I want to remind people this because right now, Justin Trudeau and all the ministers within his cabinet want to fool you to think that America was doing this out of whim, that there was no chance of getting out of these tariffs. There was no chance of. So, Donald Trump, this is what he said back in November. As everyone is aware, thousands of people are pouring through Mexico and Canada, bringing crime and drugs at levels I'd never seen before. Right now, caravan coming from Mexico, composed of thousands of people, seem to be unstoppable in its quest to come through our currently open border. Now, you have to take that a little bit with a grain of salt because Donald Trump does tend to exaggerate on his numbers. You don't know if it's exactly 1,000 people or hundreds, could be who knows exactly. You got to take that portion with a grain of salt. But the threat's still there that they're pouring people in the country. They're flying people into the country. Who's flying the people in? The federal government. They're flying migrants into cities that can't contain them. Not because they are racist or bigoted, but because they don't have the resources to. That's what's happening in Springfield, Ohio. That's what's happening here in Canada. With all the communities happening here. On January 20th, as one of my very first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariffs on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. This tariff will remain in effect until such drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve this long simmering problem. We hereby demand that every use of this power, until they do such time that they do, it's time that we pay them a very big price. So, right there, that was Donald Trump's original warning that if our politicians took more seriously, they could have prevented this. They could have prevented this. But they waited till now to finally make measures. And we don't even know what the solutions are. Because Justin Trudeau and all the other ministers, while they cried boo-hoo and why would America do this, a journalist asked them, are you going back to Parliament to figure this out? They say, no, we got this. We got this covered. We got a package for people. What's in that package? They won't tell you. So here's the AP. This is the AP article that they put together. It says Trump puts tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, fearing trade war as North America allies respond. President Donald Trump on Saturday signed an order to impose stiff tariffs on imports from Mexico, Canada, and China, drawing swift retaliation and undeniable sense of betrayal from the country's North American neighbors as a trade war erupted among longtime allies. Again, you just saw there, Trump gave them an option. Not like they just did it out of whim. They didn't do a Saturday morning, we're just going to put tariffs on people. No, they gave them time. They had an option. The Republican president posted on social media that tariffs were necessary to protect Americans. Protect Americans, pressing the three nations to do more to curb the manufacture and export of illicit fentanyl and for Canadian and Mexico to reduce illegal immigration into the United States. The tariffs, if sustained, could cause inflation to significantly worsen, threatening the trust that many voters placed in Trump to lower the price of groceries, gasoline, housing, autos, and other goods, as he promised. They also risk throwing the global economy and Trump's political mandate into turmoil just 2 weeks into his second term. Like I said, this is going to be a very wild experiment because on top of this, Donald Trump, apparently, he has this idea that he's going to fund the entire U.S. government through tariffs. That he's going to try and eliminate income taxes, property taxes, all this stuff. And it's going to be funded by imported tariffs. And it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Let's just say that. Trump declared an economic emergency in order to place duties of 10% on all tariffs from China and 25% on imports from Mexico and Canada. Energy imported from Canada, including oil, natural gas, and electricity, would be taxed at a 10% rate. Trump's order includes a mechanism to escalate the rates charged by the United States against retaliation by the other countries, raising the specter of an even more severe economic disruption. The actions taken today by the White House split us apart instead of bringing us together, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said in a somber tone as he announced that the country would be putting a matching 25% tariffs on up to $155 billion in United States imports, including alcohol and fruit. Oh, there goes your margarita afternoons, ladies. He channeled the betrayal that many Canadians are feeling, reminding Americans that Canadian troops fought alongside them in Afghanistan and helped respond to myriad crises from wildfires in California to Hurricane Katrina. We were always there to stand with you, grieving with you, the American people, he said. Mexico's president also ordered retaliatory tariffs. We're categorically rejecting the White House slander that the Mexican government has alliances with criminal organizations, as well as any intention of meddling in our territory. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum wrote in a post on X while saying she has instructed her economy secretary to implement a response that includes regulatory tariffs and other measures in defense of Mexico's interest. If the United States government and its agencies want to address the serious fentanyl consumption in their country, they could fight the sale of drugs on the streets of their major cities, which they don't do, and the laundering of money that is illegal activity generates that has done so much harm to its population. I agree. I agree with that statement. They should be looking into, we should be looking into the CIA. We should be looking into agencies that we know for years doing investigative work on the war on drugs. We know that the CIA and other agencies within the government brought in and are funding the cartels to bring in the drugs into poor black and brown neighborhoods to use as population control. That's been going on for decades that many people know about. Maybe we should be stopping that. Maybe investigate that. Of course, Donald Trump, Mr. I'm going to stop the deep state, and the rest of his cabinet aren't going to touch the CIA. Because they know they've been scared enough now. Donald Trump has been almost assassinated twice now, that you don't mess with the CIA, as Chuck Schumer would say. You don't mess with them because they have 9 ways Sunday to take you down. Even though that is a huge proponent of why the illegal drugs are pouring into the streets. We should be cutting off the funding. We should be cutting the banks and telling the banks you should not be doing funding for the cartels and sending your money over there. But they won't touch that. The premier of the Canadian province of British Columbia, David Eby, specifically called on the residents to stop buying liquor from U.S. red states. Why, if you're retaliating against America, why is it only red states? I'm curious. I'm just curious. Why only specifically red states? So, you won't get your Tennessee Jack Daniels, but you're going to get your Sonoma Napa Valley wines from California? That doesn't make sense. Why only red states, I wonder? And said it was removing American alcohol brands from government store shelves as a response to the tariffs. Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs said the country's government firmly deplores and opposes this move and will take the necessary countermeasures to defend its legitimate rights and interests. China began regulating fentanyl-related drugs as a class of controlled substances in 2019 and conducted counter narcotics cooperation with the United States, the ministry said, calling on the United States government to correct what it considers wrongful actions. The Ministry of Commerce in China said it would file a lawsuit with the World Trade Organization for the wrongful practices of the United States and will take measures to safeguard its rights and interests. So, China's really, really taking a huge leap here because now they're going to do a lawsuit on the United States through the World Trade Organization. And like I said, it's one thing to put tariffs on Canada and Mexico to get the border secure and try to push action on that, but to put tariffs on Chinese goods, considering that majority of our consumer goods, this T-shirt, this microphone here, the computer or television you're watching right now, all come from China. So you're literally putting an attack on American companies that ship their jobs overseas, and you're not demonizing the American companies, you're demonizing China. Which all this is going to do is hurt the consumer. Like I said, this is going to be one hell of an experiment, ladies and gentlemen. The tariffs will go into effect on Tuesday, setting up a showdown in North America that could potentially sabotage economic growth. A new analysis by the Budget Lab at Yale laid out the possible damage to the U.S. economy, saying the average household would lose the equivalent of $1,170 in income from the taxes. Economic growth would slow, and inflation would worsen. And the situation could be worse with retaliation from other countries. Democrats were quick to warn that any inflation going forward was the result of Trump's actions. You're worried about grocery prices. Don's raising prices with his tariffs, Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer of New York wrote in a series of posts on X. You're worried about tomato prices. Wait until Trump's Mexico tariffs raise your tomato prices. Read another. You're worried about car prices. Wait till Trump's Canada tariffs raise your car prices. Read another. But his response is, well, we can make the products here. Again, it can only do so much. And this is just gonna this is really gonna be it's gonna be a really interesting experiment here. So here is this is the CBC. This is their Washington correspondent, Katie Simpson. She was down in at DC when the tariffs began on Saturday, and she's going to explain to you the whole proponent of why the United States want to put tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. Now, I heard Mexico has some sort of negotiation. I don't know the extent of that. That's just kind of what I've heard today. It may be different by the time you're watching this, but here's what Katie Simpson says.
To resonate in the United States, and that the impact of this will really be felt loud and clear. If Donald Trump wants these tariffs to go into effect by Tuesday, as we are hearing, he's going to have to go through he'll have to use a tool called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. It's never been used before. What is required is the president has to declare a national emergency, and the president can bring the tariffs in almost immediately. The other ways that a president can go about it, they require some consultation, a study period, that kind of thing. That's why it's unlikely that's going to be the route he's going to go, because he wants them in place so quickly. And other other things he can do, it limits the scope and the scale of how long the tariffs can be in there. So really, this is uncharted territory, to really say the least. We still don't have any updated guidance from the White House or from anyone within the Trump administration. We continue to refresh the website if it's going to come out that way. We'll keep our eyes on our email in case the email email blast comes there. But Donald Trump had made it clear that this was something he was going to do, even no matter how much Canada, Mexico had really pushed back against it, saying this is not even in your own economic interest.
And the idea that that these could be lifted, I mean, they're not in place yet, but let's just go to a place that might be a little bit more optimistic. I think it took a year, Katie, and correct me if I'm wrong, to get the steel and aluminum tariffs lifted. About a year, I think, for the Canadian government to get that to happen. But if this is a measure that is in place for now, but he's not looking for concessions, I mean, is there a world in which we can get them lifted? And how would that happen? Would it be solely through the pressure of other elected representatives, Americans noticing the price of things, job losses? I mean, that's the only kind of leverage that I can think that would perhaps have any sort of impact on the president's thinking.
So it just seems like this is an outright brawl between so many leaders, and no matter where you are, if you're American, if you're Canadian, if you're Mexican, if you're Chinese, the working class just gets rolled under this battle, regardless how they feel about it. And like I said, this is going to be a wild experiment. We don't know how long this is going to last. A lot of this could have attempted to avoid. We could have actually done something to really push back on this, and done something measurable for Canada. But on top of this, Donald Trump says he's going to fund the U.S. government through tariffs. And, he mentions about Canada abusing its power, and we subsidize Canada so much, and that's why, we should just give it the 51st state title. I don't know the ins and outs of that. Again, you have to take that with a grain of salt, because Donald Trump tends to exaggerate numbers on certain things, and we don't know for sure if that's the exact amount of subsidy or where that comes from. But we could have took measures that would have decreased the probability of having these tariffs. But our Canadian government didn't do so. Our Canadian government once again failed us Canadians, and now we're feeling the burden of this aggressive war between Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau. They're trying to duke it out, they're trying to preserve their ego, but they don't have the interest of working class in mind. It just seems like once again we are thrown under the bus, and we have to deal with this insane nightmare. So here's at least Danielle Smith, and this is a bit of a long tweet here, so I'm not going to read all of this, but it says, "I'm disappointed with U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to place tariffs on all Canadian goods. This decision will harm Canadians and Americans alike and strain the important relationship and alliance between our two nations. Alberta will do everything in its power to convince the U.S. President and Congress, as well as the American people, to reserve its mutual destructive policy. We note that reduced tariff, 10% tariff for Canadian energy, which is particularly a recognition of the advocacy undertaken by our government and industry to the U.S. administration, pointing out the substantial wealth created in the U.S. by American companies and the tens of thousands of American workers that upgrade and refine approximately $100 billion of Canadian crude." So the Alberta crude, the heavy crude oil that comes from Alberta, goes through the United States and goes into the refineries. And if they're putting tariffs onto our supply of oil, that's not only going to affect Alberta's job market and the wealth and creation and our export, but it's also going to affect the refineries, because they rely on the Alberta crude oil to go down to those refineries so that they can refine that oil and sell it off to the rest of the nation. Skipping down a bit here, it is also worth noting that if oil and gas exports are excluded, the United States actually sells more to Canada than Canada sells to the United States, as I've stated to every American taxpayer I've ever met in the past few months. Canada buys more from the US than any other country on earth, more than the UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Vietnam combined. There is before no economic justification for tariffs imposed on any Canadian goods. So, it's what Danielle Smith is saying here is Donald Trump is foolish to put tariffs on our country because our country is one of their good customers. We're one of the biggest customers of United States goods. And if you're going to put tariffs onto us, you're going to lose the business. You're going to lose a lot of that business. And where are you going to sell off your goods? Just and putting tariffs on Canadian goods doesn't do as much damage because we don't sell a lot to the United States. We sell a lot in crude oil because of the Alberta oil sands and the reserves we have in that province. But we buy more from America. We buy a lot more from America. And if you put tariffs on Canadian goods coming into America, that's not going to do a lot of damage on the situation. To this end, Alberta calls on the federal government and our fellow provinces to immediately commence a national effort to fast track and build oil and gas pipelines to the east and west coast of Canada, construct multiple LNG terminals on each coast, increase internal refinery capacity, unleash the development of critical minerals, lower taxes, reduce red tape, yada, yada, yada. Our province and our nation can overcome the formidable economic challenges ahead, but we can only do so if we start acting like a healthy and functional country that supports every province to export their best resources and products to world markets, thereby achieving their unique potential. By doing so, Canada can become one of the most prosperous and powerful nations on earth. Alberta stands ready to do its part if it's true Team Canada approach is taken. So here's what Pierre Poilievre chimes in on this. And Pierre Poilievre, same message here, saying we need to put Canada first. That is why common sense conservatives condemn President Trump's massive, unjust, and unjustified tariffs on Canada's already weak economy. So he's condemning it. Danielle Smith is condemning it. All the other premiers, Justin Trudeau, all these people are condemning it. But it seems like the conservative base, it seems like the people in the blue front are actually coming up to the plate with their own ideas and actually have some sort of way to negotiate it and help Canadians in this process rather than axing us out. So Pierre Poilievre, again, I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm just going to list off the quotes here. So, number one, retaliate with dollar-for-dollar tariffs carefully aimed at maximizing impact on American companies. So, he's also implementing retaliatory tariffs right off the bat. That's Pierre Poilievre saying that. Number two, put all tariff revenues into help for affected workers and businesses. So, all the money that the government's going to get in revenue from these tariffs, he's going to put that and subsidize the businesses and people that are affected by this. Number three, pass a massive emergency bring it home tax cut to bolster the economy. Number four, immediately scrap the liberal anti-resource law D69 and greenlit LNG plants. So that was the bill that Justin Trudeau passed that terminated the pipeline building. And that was a kind of a big mistake. That was kind of a big mistake. And I know at the beginning, I was kind of for it because I thought there was actually an environmental impact to not having these pipelines. But considering the fact that we haven't eliminated fossil fuels, and we probably will never eliminate fossil fuels, it's impossible, and we're getting that resource from other territories around the world, getting it on boats and traveling across here, why are we not just using our own oil and our own reserves and passing it along from province to province? It seems like you'd be wasting less emissions on that situation. That's why I'm all for that. Number 5, bring in truly free trade within Canada by knocking down interprovincial barriers. Again, can't argue against that. I don't even know why provinces don't unite and negotiate together. I never understood that. I never understood why they put Alberta down, even though Alberta is the home of one of our biggest natural resources. Why we put down a province that's getting us a lot of export? That just doesn't make sense to me. So yes, we need to negotiate. We need to come together. All provinces need to come together and become one big Canada. Number 6, rebuild our military and take back control of our borders to regain the confidence of our partners. So, Pierre Poilievre at least understands the original threat. Not Justin Trudeau or Mélanie Joly or any of the Liberal cabinet. But it seems that Pierre Poilievre and Danielle Smith understand that, hey, you got to be concerned about border. That the illegal migrant crisis kind of initiated all this. That we could have not had this giant tariff smack in the face if we actually put towards a defense mechanism to defend our borders. So, it's good to see that some politicians have it on straight. That they actually have some sort of action plan and laid it out in detail of how they're going to resolve in this situation. Whereas Justin Trudeau, Mélanie Joly, Dominic LeBlanc, and other members within the Liberal cabinet, they're just going through the motions right now. They're going through this mind trick of, oh my God, woe is me. America did this to me. I feel hurt. I feel so hurt. And then when asked about what their action plan is, if they're going to bring back Parliament to the House of Commons, they said, no, forget about it. Forget about it. We have everything under control. But clearly you haven't, which is why we're in this mess and why the people of Canada are devastated and outraged, and rightfully so, about the lack of response to the original threat that could have resolved all this. But instead, you chose to pick a fight with Donald Trump. You're challenging each other's ego, making fools of yourself, embarrassing and screwing over this country again, rather than actually defending the people of Canada. It shows what horrible, disgusting monsters they are, and how they have no intent of serving you whatsoever. And they don't even have the intention to go back to Parliament and help save the people of Canada through this economic tension. And the people that are going to get affected are you. And and they're not telling you anything about this. Oh, we got it under control. That's it. They don't have any plans. They don't have any decisions. They haven't released anything yet, as far as I know of. But trust us. Trust us. The people that brought you the tariffs are gonna find a way to resolve the tariffs.